So I recently attended a survival instructor course with Boswa Survival and got my STARSA certification. I also have a couple of stories to tell after this. And just hang in there, I will tell you the story about how I landed up in my rooftop tent. Come down again. Bear with me, I'm really having to contend with the wind here. As I was saying before, thank you very much to Boswa Survival for making some of the video footage available for this video. And in future, you might see Live Ready and Boswa Survival working together on a couple more videos. Stay tuned for those. So the first couple of days are basic survival. This is followed by advanced survival, during which you do bushcraft, navigation, bush medic, and you start to rely a whole lot more on Herman's experience. Now he's had extensive survival training experience throughout his life, and he really does have an intimate knowledge of the environment that he trains you in.
Learning the skills out here and going back to civilization where it's inevitable to be confronted by those challenges. We can take what we learn and we can apply it to our everyday life.
So there were some team building exercises built into the course as such, and this became really important because in the days to follow we would be relying really heavily on each other for catching food so that we had something to eat. Looking for snakes, haven't found anything, but we are hopeful because we're hungry. At this point, tortoises were still off the menu, as well as building shelter and keeping a fire going throughout the night because you don't always have the right gear with you. But first, let me tell you the story of surviving the zombie apocalypse. Being outside of your normal environment and having to survive with one injured hand or with not being able to see is actually a relevant survival skill. So we were blindfolded and had to find our way back to the bush camp, and as soon as you get there, it makes for quite a bit of fun watching everybody else come in that direction. And surprise, on day 2 you don't get to sleep in your comfortable hammock and tarp anymore. So from day 2 we started building bushcraft shelters, and this could be anything from a lean-to shelter, and I built a raised platform shelter which would serve me really well in days to come. For my bed on my raised platform shelter I use something we call kooigoed, and it really is worthwhile knowing what materials you can use in the environment in order to keep yourself insulated, because it is a brilliant insulator. So let me tell you the story about how we ate the rat. This poor unfortunate creature was caught in a trap, and we did actually end up skinning and cooking and eating the rat. If you are in a survival situation, and especially from a survival instructor perspective, you need to have actually done all of these things in order to be comfortable enough to teach it to someone else. And we are talking serious survival skills here. We are talking about seriously preparing someone for surviving in the wilderness. And what you can and can't eat made for some really interesting discussion. So around day 5, you embark on an expedition with Herman as your guide, and this is the extreme survival course. Our mission was upriver, and because we had to lighten the load, we didn't get to take along any sleeping systems, shelter systems, or food for that matter. So it very quickly became eat what you catch, sleep on the ground, and stay warm by the fire. At this point, the trust and the team building exercises that you did with the group that you're with come in really handy, because now you need to rely on everybody to get up during the night, to stoke the fire, to keep you warm, to catch food, and to also find a decent campsite. Now my friend Niels, who you may recognize from some of the videos that I've posted before or some of the pictures on Instagram, is an extremely experienced fisherman. So Niels taught us how to catch fish with a net, which it's quite an incredible skill actually, and a whole lot of fun to learn. And it's very rewarding when you've managed to catch some fish that helps to feed the group. So between the lot of us, we did actually catch quite a bit of fish, and those fish get roasted over a fire on some sticks. And Pierre had the good sense to say, let's not use the sticks that have the milky sap in them. So if you do need to roast your food over a fire, avoid the sticks with the milky sap, and your body starts to get used to the idea of having no routine. When you do have food, eat all of the food that you have available to you, because there's no guarantee of having food at what you would expect to be your next meal. And also you start to get used to dealing with a little bit more of the physical endurance and the physical exertion. If you're like me and you're a light sleeper and it takes you some time to adapt to a new environment, you would be pretty exhausted by this time. And getting back to base camp means getting ready for a solo survival expedition. But first, let me tell you the story about drinking tadpoles. So on one occasion, I walked into the bush camp and Pierre turns around and he goes, "You, it was you." And as hard as you try to get the tadpoles to not end up in the water tank when you go and fill the jerry can from the dam, there's always one or two tadpoles who just have to get in there. Doesn't that just sound divine? Or it's extra protein. I mean, what can you say? Anyway, so the gist of it is, if you are filtering water, it's probably best to filter it when you fill the jerry can. And this is something that I say all the time on my YouTube videos, and somehow I still didn't do that. It's good preparation for what was to come, and anyhow. Now this is a multiple day solo expedition where you spend time building your own shelter in the bush. Again, it is eat what you catch or forage. And again, it is stay warm by your fire. So the gear got made less when we went on to extreme survival, and going on to solo survival, you had even less gear going into the exercise. So now there's no sleeping system, no shelter system, not even paracord that goes with you. Never mind the food. Luckily, by this time we were so well settled into the environment that we had a great idea of where to find fire making materials, what you can and can't eat. So having some insect repellent clothing like craghopper's clothing that I really believe in, it actually forms the first layer of your shelter system. The only problem was that the weather was turning and we were expecting some serious rain at this point.
Everything is just absolutely soaked, and every time you move outside your shelter you also end up getting soaked. And then trying to get everything dry again so that you can go to bed is just as big a mission. I'm hungry, but at least there's no shortage of water.
Ja, frack it. Clarice made the wise decision to move to a drier site. Yeah, this is really cool. So you think this one will be better?
Yeah, I think so. I think they'll be much drier here. Relatively wind sheltered, and I've patched it quite a bit, so should have enough to keep me dry.
Awesome.
Now let me tell you the story about the revenge of the scorpions. So while searching for firewood, I ended up finding a scorpion.
If you need to survive in the wilderness, you can eat a scorpion. I caught this guy this morning, and I've removed the stinger, and then I used my knife just to poke him between the eyes, so he is dead. To cook him, I'm simply going to skewer him. Because I've got parasites and all kinds of things on them, you need to make sure that you cook them properly. Now this guy's got some extra crunch. Left him on the fire a little bit long, but all good. Crunchy.
At this point, my friend Gavin was lying somewhere on his bushcraft shelter, remembering that this is a solo expedition, and Gavin managed to find 5 really large worms. He didn't cook them, he did eat them raw. And it is absolutely incredible how your body responds to a little bit of protein or even carbohydrates after you've been starved. Your whole system seems to come to life again, and the worst of it is, you don't even notice that your system starts slowly shutting down. Shortly after eating the scorpion, I was wading through the lake that was now my campsite, and I suspect that because of the amount of water there was, all of the creatures start to come out of the wood and out of the ground, and another scorpion must have basically latched onto my boot laces. And as I sat down in my shelter on my raised platform to take off my boot, I basically grabbed the shoelaces, and as I grabbed them, I felt the sting on my thumb, and I saw this little scorpion crawling over my boot, and I just flicked it away. And I sat looking at my thumb thinking, I wonder if I should report this now. And I decided that, well, it was probably what I deserved for having eaten the other scorpion. Should have eaten the second one too. So after the multiple days solo, we were extracted from the bush and we were given a touch of luxury. For the first time in over a week, we were given a shower. Now, I'd managed a couple of bucket washes and a swim in the dam prior to this. So there was some camp hygiene going on. And by the way, using ash on your feet and to brush your teeth at camp is really good practice, especially if you've gotten wet and you've been in boots the whole time, take your shoes off every now and then, let everything air out a bit. So let me tell you the story about how I ended up in my rooftop tent. At this point, I'm the only woman left on the course, and I got to shower first. So coming out of the shower, all the gentlemen were standing around and they said, well, we were just talking. We reckon you should pitch your rooftop tent tonight. And I was like, yeah, sounds like a great idea. Great discussion, thanks. So I pitched my rooftop tent that night, and from there on forward, I managed to sleep in my rooftop tent.
After 8 days in the bush, the gentlemen on the survival instructor's course put it to a vote, and from here on forward, I get to sleep in my rooftop tent. After 8 days of sleeping in makeshift bushcraft shelters, eating scorpions in the pouring rain, this tent is absolute heaven right now.
Now, we did have a bit more luxury at this point. We had completed the survival ranger course. Please don't close again. The hardest skill to master in survival is mentality, because you can have a complete lack of resources. You can be completely starved or dehydrated, but maintaining the ability to make decisions while you're under stress, while you're under strain and outside of your normal environment, that is probably the most important thing of all. Now, after completing the ranger course, you go on to completing the instructor course. Now, I've got one more story to tell you, and that is the story of the eye drops. So on the instructor course, Arlen, who was busy telling us about some of his previous military experience, was saying that on long missions, in order to stay awake, they would take some Tabasco sauce, which was my contraband of choice for this course, and rub it under their eyes so that they would stay awake on long missions. And we had a good giggle because he said, well, I mean, you can't see the enemy coming, but you're awake. And about a half an hour later, Arlen is going around, now it's just Gavin, Arlen and myself around the campfire, and Arlen's going around saying, oh, where are the eye drops, where are the eye drops? And he's legitimately going around asking for Tabasco sauce. And I got sent home with a bottle of Tabasco that now has eye drops written on it. And from here on forward, this will always be known as eye drops. And I just want to say that every other person who completed any other part of this course were absolute warriors. It was such a privilege spending time with you, and you learn so much from the people around you, not just from Herman, not just from the instructor, but also how to deal with situations, how to have fun, how to cope with stress. Now, if you've liked this video, remember to hit like and subscribe. Go and check out the links in the description to this video, gear links as well as Boswa's link for their website and their courses. Remember to follow me on social media and check out the Instagram stories. I post a little bit more of the day-to-day live ready stuff on there. And until the next time, live ready.